Welcome back, learners. We are now going to look at the next concept, which is how do the spheres interact with each other. Now, we said that the Earth is the only planet that can sustain life, right? And where do we get life? We get life from plants as well as animals. So this, my animal here, as well as the plants that are here, so they all represent the biosphere. Okay, they all represent the biosphere. Now, in order for life to exist on Earth, we need the biosphere to interact with other spheres. So the biosphere here is going to interact with our hydrosphere. Remember, where we see water, we see the hydrosphere. Now, how does living things interact with the hydrosphere? Now, remember that in order for plants to grow, they need water from the soil. So the water from the soil will be absorbed via the roots of the plant in order for the process of photosynthesis to occur. And remember, how do animals as well as human beings interact with the hydrosphere? Animals also need to drink water. They need to cook with water in order for them to eat and survive. So that is how the biosphere interacts with the hydrosphere. And we go on to the next sphere, which is our atmosphere. Remember, we said in order for life to exist on Earth, we also need the hydrosphere as well as the atmosphere. Now, let me just rub off my biosphere here so that you can be able to see it properly. I'll just write it here. This is my biosphere. And then this one is my atmosphere. Right, there is my atmosphere. Now, how does the biosphere interact with my atmosphere? Remember, during the process of photosynthesis, we said that we need the hydrosphere, which is the water from the soil, as well as the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Remember, in the atmosphere, we have gases such as the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere will have to be absorbed by the plants in order for the process of photosynthesis to occur. So that is how the atmosphere is going to interact with the biosphere, and it is also going to interact with the hydrosphere. Now, let's move on to the next sphere to see how it interacts. Here we can see the land. We know that when we see the land, this is where we have our lithosphere. So this is our I'll just continue here, sphere. I hope we are together. Now, this is the lithosphere. How does the lithosphere interact with the biosphere? How does it interact with the hydrosphere? And also, how does it interact with the atmosphere? Now, remember, we said photosynthesis is a good example to explain how all these different spheres work together. So remember, we said during the process of photosynthesis, we need the water from the soil. So this is when the water now interacts with the lithosphere. Remember, in the lithosphere, this is where we get our soil, our sand, our rocks, our mountains. So during the process of photosynthesis, we need the water from the soil to be absorbed into the leaf, okay, into the roots, into the roots, then into the stem, then into the leaf, in order for the process of photosynthesis to occur. Remember, plants need to take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in order also for the process of photosynthesis to occur. Then again, human beings as well as animals, what do? They have to release also what we call the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So there is an exchange of gases between the atmosphere together with the plants as well as animals. Remember, animals are able to release carbon dioxide, and plants are the ones that are releasing oxygen. And all of these gases, they are released into the atmosphere. They are released by living things, which means that there is an interaction between the atmosphere and the biosphere. Remember that there is a link between photosynthesis and the spheres of the Earth. So if we remember very well, photosynthesis, Remember, photosynthesis, we need water, which is the hydrosphere, from the soil, which is the land, that must interact with the plant, which is the biosphere, in order for us to release oxygen, and also the plant must also absorb back carbon dioxide. And that is how the photosynthesis links with all how the spheres interact with each other. Now we're going to move on to how do they interact. I think I've already mentioned how the hydrosphere and the lithosphere interact. Here I said that the lithosphere and the hydrosphere, we need water from the soil. I think I've already explained that during the process of photosynthesis. And then plants and animals need water and land in order for them to survive. And we know that plants is the biosphere and animals is also the biosphere. And then water is the hydrosphere, and then land is the lithosphere. So it just shows how all of these spheres interact with each other. The atmosphere and the biosphere, I've spoken about plants giving off the oxygen and human beings giving out the carbon dioxide. Okay, I think I've already mentioned that. And then learners, we're gonna move on to the last concept of the lesson, which is what happens when we upset the balance in the system. Okay, now during upsetting the balance is that if the balance in any of the system is changed, it affects the entire system. Okay, so the entire biosphere, the lithosphere, and the hydrosphere will be affected if any of them causes an imbalance. Now let's look at an example. One, if there's not enough water, if we don't have enough water, the trees will not flourish and produce fruit. Now, how does that disturb the entire system? If there isn't enough water, that means that there won't be enough trees, and all the animals that depend on trees, which are your herbivores, okay, which are your herbivores, all these animals will suffer because then they won't have anything to eat, and if it continues, they might even die and they might even become extinct. So it's very important that all the systems need to balance each other in order for the life on Earth to be sustained. Now let's look at another example of how the interactions could really affect the spheres of the Earth. Remember, we spoke about load shedding when we said that it disturbs the interactions of the systems of the Earth. Now, how does it do that? When there is load shedding, there are a lot of people that are burning coal, and more coal is being burned, and then we have air pollution in the atmosphere. And the air pollution will then affect the availability of carbon dioxide to the trees. And we know that if there is a disturbance in the availability of carbon dioxide in the trees, that means that we are also affecting the process of photosynthesis. Okay? Then we look at the other example, the last one, which is if there are no sufficient minerals in the soil, plants cannot grow. It takes us back to the first point that we spoke about. We said that if there isn't enough water, if there isn't enough minerals, that means we will affect the growth of the plants. That means herbivores will also do what? Suffer. Now, thank you so much for tuning in, learners, and hope to see you next time. Bye.